Stoic, he'll beat you to death with it.
It's a whistle. If you hear that, then.
Now you hear that, it's too late.
Hello everybody, welcome back to Screenstars. I'm here today to bring you my review for the 2024 thriller, The Stoic. The film is written and directed by John Eckersley and it stars Scott Wright, Gerald Benjamin, Stuart Brennan, Acre Evans, Tom Feasby and Jason Fleming. Now the film focuses on a group of mercenaries who have just pulled off a job. I think it's like a drugs raid or something. They've taken a couple of women hostage with them, and they have made their way to like a country retreat to kind of wait it out. However, they draw the attention of a Stoic, and these Stoics are part of an ancient clan who are cult, where they are kind of molded into these moralistic killers, and if they deem you to be doing something that kind of crosses their morals, they will target you and take you out. Right, what are my thoughts on The Stoic? Right, okay, well, this is a UK-based thriller. It's got quite an interesting plot or concept here. You know, the whole idea of these Stoics actually seemed quite interesting to me. I wasn't exactly sure what I was going to get watching this. Reading the synopsis and stuff, it was like, I'm not really sure what this Stoic is, and it's one of those scenarios where, okay, you don't understand what this Stoic is for the most part initially, and then a bit like John Wick. Remember that scene in John Wick where the leader of like the mob explains to his son who John Wick is, and by the end of that, you're kind of like, crikey, okay, John Wick is for real. He's badass. Well, there's a scene in this where they become aware, these mercenaries, and these are hardened mercenaries, by the way. They become aware that they've drawn the attentions of a Stoic. Some of them don't know what a Stoic is, a couple of them do, and they enlighten the others. And by the end of that conversation, everybody's aware of what a Stoic is, as well as you, the audience member. So it does a pretty good job of explaining who they are. There's a very brief scene within the film showing this Stoic in particular being moulded, I suppose you could call it, or tortured essentially, to kind of be moulded into the person that these Stoics want them to be. And then the movie follows a fairly predictable pattern. You've got these mercenaries, if you like, trying to scout out and find this Stoic, and this Stoic outthinking them, outwitting them, and basically taking them out one at a time, and thinning the herd. And that's essentially how, for the majority of the film goes. It's got a dead man walking, a dead man's shoes, vibe going to it. Nowhere near at that kind of level. But it's got that kind of feel to it, when in Dead Man's Shoes, when Paddy Considine is like stalking them, sort of thing. It's got that kind of feel to it, and that's the comparison that I made. But it becomes, if you like, a little bit, definitely predictable and a little bit dull, because there's not a great deal happens, and the biggest issue by a long, long way, I think, is the pacing of this. It's paced at a very, very slow pace. Now, I don't mind that sometimes in films. If the stuff, when it's slowed down, if the stuff that's been put in there while it's slowed down is interesting, but unfortunately a lot of it is the same conversations, these mercenaries arguing amongst themselves about what they're going to do, what this Stoic's going to do, etc., etc. And it doesn't really deviate from that pattern until it gets to a certain point in the film where the mercenaries kind of get on top of the situation, it would seem. And then that's when it kind of leads you into the final act. I just feel like this film could have been a really hard-hitting British thriller along the lines of Dead Man's Shoes, Bull, that came out a couple of years ago that I thought was outstanding. There's some really good hardcore like British thrillers out there that really get close to the bone and very dirty, gritty, and grimy. And this kind of fails to kind of get to that level, but you could feel within it that there's the bones there for it to kind of do it. They just kind of needed to flesh it out more. Some of the kills are pretty brutal and graphic. And same with some of the fight scenes, but it never really, like I say, it never really fully feels like it pulls the trigger. Not in the way of those other films I mentioned that are very, very brutal films. And that's what I was hoping for this. It still leaves an air of mystery about the Stoics, which I think is a clever move. You don't want everything explaining. Like I say, you get most of the explanation of what these Stoics are through the conversations with the mercenaries in regards to their knowledge on the Stoics. The guy, Scott Wright, who actually plays the Stoics, says very, very little in this film. Indeed. And there, a couple of times, when he rescues one of the women and she kind of asks him what he's going to do, and he basically responds very coldly, kill them all. So I don't know, it almost feels like it's got like a Terminator element going to it as well. I think what I'm trying to say with this one, I think this one had a lot of potential. I don't think it actually fully delivered on that. I think it's almost half the film it should have been at times. I think they could have been far more brutal, far more graphic, increased the pace a little bit, or make the characters a little bit more interesting, because a lot of these mercenaries were just kind of one note. There was only really one that I remember that was interesting really in any way, or had any kind of interest to them, any kind of layers to them. Beyond that, they were all kind of one note, I'm going to kill this Stoic guy once I get my hands on him sort of thing. And Jason Fleming, always nice to see him in movies. It doesn't really get a great deal to do here, unfortunately. But yeah, I mean, definitely watchable, this one. I enjoyed the concept of it. I definitely had an interesting idea going for it. It just didn't necessarily nail it all. But if you like, hardened, like British thrillers, there's something here that you'll probably be able to enjoy if you check this one out. So thanks for joining me for this review, guys. I hope you liked it. I hope you found it useful. I will, of course, be back with plenty more reviews and content on the channel very, very soon.